Kwe. Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. We're not waiting just in case something happens. We really wanted to begin the day sharp at 1, but first thing on the agenda, right after a quick lesson from Marsha and her team, sign languages. We'll learn some sign languages, and right after we'll have resolutions and chiefs and proxies. You know that we need quorum, so I just asked to make sure that, to count the floor, just to make sure if we have quorum to make decisions. We don't, so that is sad, because we will have less time to make decisions. So as soon as we have quorum, we'll be in a position to get into business. But for now, we'll start with a little something I think that you all like, and for the new ones, you will really like that, I'm pretty sure. We started that back in July 2022, I think, in Vancouver. I am going to turn the floor over to Véronique. She's going to explain what we're going to do. It's related to sign languages. And on that, je vous souhaite un bel après-midi.
I wish you a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Don't forget to go and get your translation headsets if you need them, because we'll be speaking in French too this afternoon, not just as in English, as we often say. Unfortunately, the colonizers had 2 languages, and to be able to express ourselves, each in our original language, we have to choose English or French, and that's what we're doing, so that we have the interpretation to respect cultural differences throughout Turtle Island. And on that, I pass the microphone over to the co-chair, Véronique Picard. Over to you, Véronique.
Welcome back. Thank you everyone for coming in the room. That's very appreciated. I hope you all had a great lunch. Maybe you had time to go and visit the Circle of Trade that's downstairs. If not, you can visit it anytime until Thursday at 1 p.m. Bonjour, j'espère que vous avez eu un bon dîner.
Hello, I hope you enjoyed your lunch, that you had a bit of time for yourselves, that you had time to go and see the Circle of Artists. It is 1 floor below us. For the representatives and the Francophone chiefs, I wanted to tell you that the main screen will be showing resolutions in French later today. It's a screen that's here to my left. So if you wish to see the transcriptions in French more easily, you might want to come on this side of the hall.
For the council reports, we haven't had time for them this morning. Therefore, we will be doing them tomorrow morning at 9. So that's the new time, and we want to remind the councils that you have 5 minutes maximum per council for the reports. We have I'll say it again, we have a lot of resolutions. It's the assembly that has the most resolution in the history of AFN, so that's why we ask you to be very, very, very sharp on time, and we'll remind it a lot during this assembly. I also want to take a little time to thank our sponsors. Without them, it wouldn't be possible to be all of our nations together right now. It's a huge investment to gather everyone. So we want to thank GFK Law, Atkins Realis, Aviso, and Peace Hills Trust. So thank you for making this possible for us. Also, Wina mentioned that there are translations devices at the back. We know that it's not everyone that takes the device, but it's very important. We'll be discussing important issues, and some chiefs are more comfortable speaking in French as it is their colonial language. Therefore, if you want to understand what those chiefs have to say, we invite you to go at the back. You need to have an ID, and you can take the device. And now it is time for our little interactive session. Every day of the assembly, we will have an interactive sign language session. So I would like to introduce you to Marsha, Debbie, and their team for this activity. And please give them a very warm welcome. Or like that. Oh.
Sagoli. Dehum, Dagwegum, Dayon, Miugets. Oneida, Nation of the Thames. I am Turtle Clan. I'll now say it in ASL, in English. Hello, everyone. My English name is Marsha Ireland. I am from Oneida Nation of the Thames. I am Turtle Clan. So I'm going to teach you maybe a bit of a refresher of some ASL and OSL, Oneida Sign Language. So in ASL, everybody copy me. Do as I'm doing. Hello! Hello, everybody. Hi! In Oneida, Sagoli. Sagoli. In Oneida, Nikitwa. Nikitwa. In English or in ASL, it would be bye. So I'll do it again. Nikitwa. Nikitwa. Yonko. Yonko. Oneida. Sign language. In ASL, it would be thank you. Thank you. We also have some people say miigwech. Miigwech. So this is a sign for miigwech. In the western part of this land, we'll see thank you or ho-ho, done this way, haha. So we'll do a bit of review. Sagoli, hello. Nikitwa. We'll see you later or bye. Thank you. Miigwech. Maybe everyone can stand up and stretch their legs and say miigwech or yonko, whatever works for you. Ah, there we go, miigwech. Yes, yes, miigwech. Yonko. Okay, everybody can sit. It's just a little stretch before you get started today. And for those who are from the western part of these lands who say thank you in this way, and Yonko. I'm going to teach you a new one today, chief. The interpreter does not know how to say chief in Oneida yet. Chief in ASL is like this. And Oneida is like this. So ASL, English, chief. and OSL chief. I want to say Yonko for inviting me here to share my Oneida Sign Language to all the chiefs, the regional chiefs, and all of our chiefs that are here today. All of the delegates, chiefs. Yonko for taking the time to learn sign with me today. Yonko.
Nyango, Marsha, and Debbie. We have found a cell phone around the elevators. It has like emojis of camping and deer and leaves. So if you have that background and you know that you lost your phone, we have it. We'll give it probably to distribution when they get there. So you can retrieve it. Also, we want to remind you that we have an accessibility team that's available. So if you have anything that you need help with, for instance, you don't have enough room for your scooter or anything that you would need, you can go and tell them. They're just over there. Can you please stand up? And they have yellow handbands, so you can see them very easily. So thank you. I will now turn the floor to my colleague, Rina.
Merci beaucoup, Véronique Tiawang.
Thank you very much, Véronique Tiawang.
And Jimmy Goetz. And to Marsha. It's very an honor to have her in our assemblies, and we'll make space for her for a lesson each day this week. So on that, guess what? Yes, we can start with draft resolutions. So yes, we moved, we adopted 2 motions this morning, but now we'll deal with charter draft resolutions. As you all know by now, we have 3 draft resolutions related to charter, so we'll start with them. And let's begin with the first charter draft resolution, number 1. And on that, I will ask technicians to please put the whereas, because yes, and I'm going to read, yes, I'm going a bit too fast, huh, technicians, I'm sorry. It's just been a year that I did that, so I'm a bit, I don't know how to, je suis un peu rouillée, I'm a bit,
I'm a little rusty.
maybe, I don't know. Okay, so first, we'll deal with draft resolution, the charter draft resolution number 1, and for charters resolutions, we will read them all together because they complete the entire draft resolution, because it's so important. It is related to the heart of the organization of the AFN, so it's very important. So we will read the whole draft resolution only for charters resolutions, and as well for emergency draft resolution. And yes, and on that, I want to mention that emergency draft resolution number 1 has been distributed on the floor. If you need a copy, if you don't have a hard copy, there are copies available at resolutions, at distributions, sorry. So copies available over there if you need to read it and to have a copy. On that, I'm going to read the title. I just need to open my my computer, but yes, because it's very hard here to read. Can we encore, Jeff? Can you just make it a bit bigger? You're so nice. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. So, the title, the Charter Draft Resolution number 1 is entitled Addressing National Chief Election Voting Deadlocks. This draft resolution number 1 has been moved by Chief Dylan White Duck, Kitigan ZB. Chief White Duck, are you present in the room? Just looking to make sure that the mover is present in the room. I thought I saw you before. Chief White Duck, Dylan White Duck, are you present in the room? I'm going to go to the seconder, and maybe Chief White Duck will join us. So by the time we confirm if the seconder is present in the room, but I think I see Chief Jenny Brake. Are you the seconder? Microphone number 1, please. Yes, so the seconder is at microphone number 1. Is Chief White Duck present in the room at this moment? I am going to go to microphone number 1, please.
My name is Chief Sidney Peters from Nova Scotia, Glooscap. And Chief White Duck just had to step out for an emergency phone call, so I'll step in for him to move it.
Okay, so you are going to be the mover of this draft resolution number 1. Thank you very much, Chief. Don't go too far because we'll come back to you. But as of now, what we will need to do is to read the whereas section, and then we'll read together the therefore be it resolved section. And just to give a break to our brothers, sisters, and everyone that speak French, I am going to read it in French. Alors, cela va comme suit.
So it goes as follows. Whereas the Assembly of Chiefs for the AFN chart continue to reflect on the preoccupations relative to the impasses for the request for vote is prolonged by the chiefs when there is only 2 candidates left on the bulletin. This needs to be improved according to the CCRC. We have to improve, amongst others, Article 22(1) and Annex A 1990, the rule for the national chief, who isn't supplying clear, efficient means to resolve blockages in votes in cases where the last 2 candidates do not manage on several occurrences to attain the limit of 60% qualified majority. C, when there, with the preceding elections, a number of turns of votes, non-decisive, are held during the evening until the next day, and the block can only be broken with the voluntary acceptance. This is not good for the health of the participants. D, the Extraordinary Assembly of Chiefs in December 2023 was marked by another prolonged election, which involved 2 voting turns, which were non-decisive for the 2 candidates, which brought about new calls for the modification of the charter of the APA. This aims to improve and qualify the charts in modifying the disposition of Annex A in order to remediate the blockages when only 2 candidates remain, and by modifying Article 22(1) in order to refer, namely Annex A, for the electoral rules. F, the current resolution for the charter of the APN brought about bringing suspense, amongst others, expenses for campaigns and the recognition of virtual and hybrid expressions during the assemblies. We will now read the portion of the decision for the resolution project. It's for the motives for the First Nations in Assembly. 1, request that the following modifications be brought to Annex A 1990 for the Charter AFN in the position of the National Chief. E, small I, amended B, function of electoral official as follows. Send by email the names of the candidates respecting the delay, using the official list of the names of the chiefs in the Assembly of First Nations at least 4 weeks before the elections, and to post this information on the website of the APA. 2, amend E. First, costs of electoral campaigns as follows. Replace $35,000 by $100,000. To amend F, 2, under conduct of election, add the second sentence that reads, the vote may be cast in person at the Assembly or virtually online. Small 4, to amend F7, conduct of election, as reads, subject paragraph F10, the winner of the election shall be that person who first gains a majority. Excuse me, I'm reading what is written. The winner of the election shall be that person who first gains a majority of 60% of the votes of members who cast ballots who are registered at the Assembly. Small 5, to amend F10, conduct of election, to add a second sentence to read, when there are only 2 candidates remaining, the Chief Electoral Officer shall announce that a final ballot will be conducted and the candidate with the most votes shall be declared the winner, even if that candidate does not reach the 60% benchmark. Small 6, to update the title of the appendix to AFN Charter Appendix A 2024 Electoral Rules for the Office of the National Chief. 2, direct that Article 22(1) of the Charter of the Assembly of First Nations be amended to read, the National Chief shall be elected by the First Nations in Assembly as per AFN Charter Appendix A 2024 Electoral Rules for the Office of the National Chief.
Draft resolution number 1 has been moved, seconded, read, and entered into the record. I will now open the floor for the discussion period of time, and I will first invite the mover and ask him if he wishes to speak on that draft resolution, to introduce this draft resolution number 1, and you have the mover, yes, perfect. So if you want to speak to that matter, you have up to 4 minutes. Thank you very much. Microphone number 1, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for the record, my name is Chief Sid Peters from Glooscap First Nation in Nova Scotia. Just wanted to say that, you know, we are eager here to present the BDO report in our recommendations to the First Nations Assembly. This presentation will allow us to finally settle the matter and refocus on our primary mandate, which is, of course, to undertake engagement and advance recommendations on renewal of the AFN Charter and other means to ensure effective and appropriate governance. The call for a 10-year forensic audit has been a significant distraction. The BDO report confirms that such an extensive and expensive investigation is not warranted and should not be undertaken. While the report did identify some internal controls that could be strengthened, it is common for any organization to find room.
Chief, I'm very sorry to interrupt. We are now talking about draft resolution number 1 related to the election of the national chief, the rules pertaining to the election. We're just waiting to get this situation resolved. And thank you, technicians, because technicians pause the time, the clock, so you're not using your time to figure this out.
Okay.
Microphone number 1, please.
So I apologize for that. That's what happens when you are called up the last moment, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is, I've only got 2 minutes and 57 seconds. I'm going to ask Chief White Duck to speak to that, if that's okay. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Hold on. I just want to apologize to the Assembly here today. I stepped out for just a minuscule of a second to use the washroom, and I missed the opportunity to speak on this resolution. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the Assembly, chiefs, colleagues, friends, allies. There has been a lot of turnover in the Charter Renewal Committee, and I'd like to formally announce and acknowledge all the committee members who served on the Charter Renewal, Sayers, Casalem, and there's so many that volunteered and helped the Assembly. During this time, the Charter Renewal Committee, along with Regional Chief Mitchell, we exercised a process to explore changing the electoral reform for our national chief process. Obviously, we gathered on the Algonquin territory in December to elect a national chief. And I believe it's time that we fix this process. Enough of this 10-hour process of voting for a national chief. The chiefs and the Assembly mandated the Charter Renewal to fix this. So we gathered, we met, and we wanted to fix this as soon as possible. We were united on this process, and we felt it's important to change this and get with the times too, because the old charter didn't respect the fact that you could do online voting. So we made that friendly amendment to the charter to accompany that, as well as the deadlock situation. I just want to acknowledge that I've seen Chief Pratt and Chief Woodhouse when they were running for the national chief. They took a time to go meet each other at night around 11:30 at midnight, just before the polls closed, I guess, that time. And it was really a comforting moment to see our two national chiefs come together. And it was hard for them to see them come together, hold each other, and all the battles they had to go through to become the national chief. No national chief should go through what they had to go through. I want to apologize to all the former national chiefs that stood in the Assembly many hours to get their announcement on who's the national chief. I believe there was Bellegarde and Alio, I think, went in Calgary for about 15, 16 hours, and there's been a few other scenarios. So it's time to fix this. We worked very hard on this process and this resolution for the electoral for the national chief, and we hope you understand the reasoning for this, and we hope you're in favor of having a process where we could have, when there's two candidates, you'll get your result right there, right then, right now, and we can all celebrate together. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Chief White Duck. Before going to, I'm going to check with the seconder if the seconder wishes to speak to that draft resolution number 1 first, and then we'll go to subsequent chiefs and proxies. Just want to make sure that you all remember that the way we proceed, we alternate between microphone 1 and 2. And we're not taking into account who arrived first, because it would be honestly impossible. So you're the one deciding where you want to go in line. And so now I just want to give the floor to the seconder. Microphone number 1, please.
Madam Chair, there's a point of order here.
Okay.
The resolution that was handed out was moved by Chief David Monias and was seconded by Chief Matt Pasco in our kits. Okay? And we were dealing with resolution number 1. You asked for a mover of that resolution if he was here, and then Chief Peters put up his hand as the mover. And then we had Jenny Brake as the seconder, but they said they were on the wrong resolution. They were thinking of a different resolution. So I think there's a point of order here that you got to go back to the original mover and the original seconder before we ask for them, because they're not speaking on this resolution. So I think we got to get the rules straight here. And if Chief Munias isn't in the room, is there going to be a mover? Because we don't have our point of order in order.
Thank you, Chief, for this intervention. The mover and the seconder, as they have been entered into the record as is, but the original mover and seconders, they can speak to that issue. You all have 4 minutes. It's the same. It is what it is, as we say in French. I'm kidding. So on that, we will, and sometimes there are changes. It's not because we have a mover on the in a seconder in the kit. There are changes, and if a chief is not there to move, we will look to see if someone else wishes to move for this person, and that is what happened. We take it like that. So on that, I want to give the floor to the seconder to the initial seconder. The seconder can give his time or her time to the person, but we will need to go at the microphone number 1 if the seconder wishes to speak. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the microphone number 2. Microphone number 1, please.
Hello, Chief Jenny Brake, Hollywood First Nation. I'd just like to address that the draft emergency resolution that was handed out to chiefs earlier says number 1 /2024. So the confusion comes from, I think, a typo on the sheet that we have here in front of us.
Yes, yeah.
I've been asked to step in as seconder for the motion that is being addressed currently, and I agree with the motioner on all the points that were made. And I just add that having attended the last election, I think we all feel compelled to change the way we do things to be more efficient and more respectful to one another.
Thank you, Chief. Just want to make sure that I think there's I know now why there's a confusion. The confusion is because there are 2 types of draft resolution. We have on time draft resolution number 1, which is what we're talking about right now, or should be. And the other thing, we have also emergency draft resolution number 1, which has been distributed, as I mentioned at the beginning, and this, the two letters on top of the draft resolution is ER-01. This one is not the one we're talking about right now. We now are discussing the one that I just read and entered into the record. So it's on time draft resolution number 1 related to the charter. So on that, I am going to go to microphone number 2, please.
Lee Spahan, Chief Quarter Band. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with the previous speaker that there should be a point of order in effect, because there was a mover, but there was no seconder, and it went right into discussion. So a point of order, Madam Chairman. There should be a mover and a seconder before there's any discussions happening.
Thank you, Chief. I confirm we have a mover and we have a seconder, and we are discussing this draft resolution number 1 related to charter. So is there any intervention, comments, proposed amendment to this draft resolution number 1? This is what we are talking about right now. Microphone number 1, please.
Chief King Gulbey First Nation. I just want to make sure that we're dealing with the AFN Charter, Resolution 1.
Yes.
We have a mover, Sidney Peters now says he'll move it, and we have Jenny Brake said she'll second it. Are we all clear on that?
No. Is it the same? Yes, we're all clear on that.
Thank you.
Chief. Thank you, Chief. So, can I assume there is no discussion needed on the draft resolution number 1, entitled Addressing National Chief Election Voting Deadlocks? So I see no chiefs or proxies at the microphones. So I assume we are ready to put the matter to a vote. And on that, I'm going to ask first, is there any microphone number 2, please? Just right in time.
So what we have in our packages, those names don't fit what were said. Can those be put up on the screen so that way there's clarity to the chiefs?
Of course, Chief. Yes, this can be done. So technician, or I don't know who's in charge of the Google Doc to provide this change, but I think it has been done. So technician, can you please put up on the screen the Google Drive folder to make sure that we all see here the changes in this draft resolution number 1 entitled Addressing National Chief Election Voting Deadlocks. Thank you so much. great team, great work. Yep.
The English one is the correct one.
So we will not put up on the screen, I'm sorry, technicians, but the French version, we're not in a capacity at this moment to make live amendments in the French. So maybe when we are at the live amendments, we can only put the English on both screens. And so we don't want to get confused with the French one, which has not been changed. So don't get confused with that. We're just going to look at the English version up on the screen. And the English version reflects the mover and the seconder. So on that, going back to the vote, is there any opposition in the room to this draft resolution number 1 entitled Addressing National Chief Election Voting Deadlocks? Any opposition to this? I'm going to ask my friends to make sure that I don't see any opposition here. So anyone wishes to take note or to enter into the minutes your abstention? Any abstention in the room? So thank you very much, Miigwech chiefs and proxies. This draft resolution number 1 has been adopted by consensus. So the first one by consensus. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Weena, for that. So we will now continue with draft resolution on charter renewal, draft resolution 2, which is titled Clarifying Rules and Procedures for Establishing Quorum at AFN Assemblies. We have as a mover Chief Sidney Peters, who I imagine you're not too far away, and that was seconded by Chief Jenny Brake from Qualipu First Nation. If we can have those put on screens and brought down to the whereas. Again, just because these are charter renewal resolutions, we will be going through the entirety of the whereas as well as the therefore be it resolved. So technical team, if you can go down to the whereas as we read through them. Thank you very much. So whereas A, it is essential that the rules and procedures for establishing, maintaining, and questioning quorum at Assembly of First Nations, in parentheses AFN, assemblies are made clear, transparent, and practical to enforce. Whereas B, questions pertaining to quorum at AFN assemblies are frequent, contentious, and encroach on the limited and valuable time available for First Nations in Assembly to provide direction to the AFN. Whereas C, prior to the July 2021 AFN Annual General Assembly in Ottawa, in parentheses virtual, the rules of procedure for AFN assemblies contained an explanation on the process by which quorum is established and maintained through the full duration of an assembly. This long-standing process was consistent with the Charter of the Assembly of First Nations, in parentheses the Charter, provisions on quorum. Whereas D, AFN Resolution 03-2021, clarification of designated representatives and proxy, mandated a change to the Charter and the Rules of Procedure, introducing a new description of quorum intended to prevent misunderstandings. However, this change presented new challenges and misunderstandings by subpoint I, being insufficiently detailed, subpoint 2, removing description of the quorum process from the AFN Rules of Procedure, subpoint 3, introducing a description of quorum that is arguably inconsistent with those long-standing processes, and subpoint 4, IV, being impractical to uphold through the full duration of an assembly in a manner that is consistent, transparent, accurate, and time efficient. Whereas E, neither the current nor previous versions of the Charter properly accounted for the fact that the assemblies are now often held remotely or in hybrid, and that chiefs and proxy representatives participating virtually must also be counted as present on the assembly floor. The new proposed description for quorum should clearly account for virtual participation. Whereas F, In the current version of the Charter, under the heading of Decision Making, Article 8 in paragraph 1 describes the rules for both quorum and voting for the First Nations in Assembly. For increased clarity, it is proposed that a new charter description for quorum be provided in an amended Article 8.1, and the rules for voting be retained separately as a new Article 8.2. And finally, whereas G, this resolution seeks to replace AFN Resolution 03-2021, clarification of designated representatives and proxies. We will now read the therefore be it resolved into the record. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, direct that Article 8.1 of the Charter of the Assembly of First Nations be amended to read, quorum for assemblies will be established as follows. Point A, on each day of the Assembly, a count will be conducted of chiefs and proxy representatives present on the floor of the Assembly room, including those who are present in the designated virtual Assembly room. Subpoint B, on each day of the Assembly, a quorum will be then maintained so long as the number of chiefs and proxy representatives present on the floor of the Assembly, in parentheses, including those attending virtually, is equal to at least 51% of that initial count for the day, for that day. Subpoint C, on each day of the Assembly, quorum must be established prior to decision-making by the First Nations in Assembly. And finally, therefore be it resolved, 2, direct that a new Article 8.3 be inserted and reads as, decisions of the First Nations in Assembly shall be made as far as possible by consensus or general agreement. When all efforts at achieving a consensus have been exhausted without success, a positive vote of 60% of the chiefs and proxy representatives of First Nations present in the Assembly room shall be sufficient to constitute a decision. We now turn to our introduction by our mover, Chief Sidney Peters. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now, hopefully we can get this correct this time. I apologize for the last one, but, unfortunately, that's kind of how it works. Leadership, as you know, we're quite busy. We come and go and get emergency calls and stuff. So anyway, as you know, over the years, of course, we always seem to find it difficult under leadership trying to get quorum at a lot of these meetings. And it's unfortunate, we spend a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of people are here, to do business. And as a result, sometimes it's difficult to get quorum. So just wanted to mention that, at the Charter Committee of Renewal, they worked hard or whatever to try to put this together. The importance of time for each and every one of us. So quorum is important, and how can we kind of, come up with the best solution for everybody to work on. So I'm going to read part of it. So as you know, the current rule in spelling out in the resolution of 03-2021 is the clarification of designated representative and proxies. The rule itself seems, on the surface at least, extremely simple. In fact, that is a problem. This is not enough detail to be clear on how the rule should be applied throughout the Assembly. The new rule we are presenting to you today seeks to clearly spell out what has been in the practice in many years at AFN. And in this process, as previously explained at the AFN conference booklet and rules of procedures. The purpose of this draft charter resolution is essentially reverse solution of 03-2021. A small change is that looking to be therefore be resolved, the intent here is to remove the previous unnecessary provision for when exactly a quorum count must be conducted. So that it is because the basis of the organization of the preliminary agenda inside sessions, the predetermined time may not be appropriate for identifying the number of chiefs and proxies present at the purpose of determining quorum. Instead, the rule emphasizes the obvious, which is that the quorum is needed before decisions can be made by the First Nations Assembly. I should note that while it doesn't necessarily matter when the count is conducted, the Assembly chairs will absolutely let participants know the timing for the count of each day. That's all I have. I'm going to pass it over to my seconder to finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Peters. So as seconder, you also have 4 minutes. So I will look towards microphone 1 for Chief Jenny Brake from Qualipu First Nation.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the Chiefs Committee on Charter Renewal for all the hard work that they've put into these resolutions. The existing rule is too simple and could be interpreted in a way that is so strict that we can consistently lose quorum throughout the 3 days of the Assembly, and proceedings would grind to a halt. The resolution also forced the Secretariat to remove the details from the conference booklet that previously explained exactly how quorum is established, maintained, and questioned during assemblies. We ask that we review this and make the changes that are recommended by the Chiefs Charter.
Thank you, Chief Brake. So we will open now for discussion. I see we already have someone at microphone number 2.
Yeah, to clarify, Chief Kelsey Jack from Cold Lake First Nations. The clarify rules do not show how account is to be maintained, but only that it is to be done on each day. The resolution identifies both 51% and 60% of chiefs or proxies as sufficient to constitute a decision, which will add to a confusion. So friendly recommendation, can I get clarity on the 51 and 60%? Or otherwise just reject it and send it back for reconsideration.
Thank you, Chief Kelsey. So I believe I can answer that. When we look at them, in point B, we talk about quorum being maintained. So quorum will then be maintained so long as the number of chiefs and proxy representatives present on the floor of the assembly room, including those attending virtually, is equal to at least 51% of that initial count. So that is for quorum. Point 2, which then includes the insertion of Article 8.3, says decisions of the First Nations in Assembly shall be made as far as possible by consensus or general agreements. When all efforts at achieving consensus have been exhausted without success, a positive vote of 60% of the chiefs and proxy representatives of First Nations present in Assembly shall be sufficient to constitute a decision. So 60% is specific to the amount of votes for a motion or a resolution to be passed. 51% is specific to quorum. And if I understand well, we are now separating these two, as was explained in the whereas. They are currently within the same article. There will now be 2 articles to create that separation so that confusion can be dealt with. No one on microphone 1, so microphone 2.
Thank you, Chief Vernon Saddleback, Samson Cree Nation. I think I just need a little more clarity on that 51% matter, because I'm still kind of confused. My question is, you're going to be doing a head count at the beginning of the session. Now, where does that come with the registered chiefs who have registered to be here? Because, you know, I was in the Alberta caucus room when the first vote was coming up, so I got to get into the room to go vote. You know, so but it doesn't answer my question about that whole 51%. Is it 51% of the registered chiefs who have registered to be here, or 51% of the ones who are sitting in a room at the beginning? That's my clarity question I'm asking. Thank you.
That is addressed in, I believe, point A. So on each day of the Assembly, a count will be conducted of chiefs and proxy representatives present on the floor of the Assembly room, including those who are present in designated virtual Assembly rooms. Basically what we're saying is that every day, so the process will no longer be day 1 registration, day 2 present. The rule will be the same on day 1, 2, and 3. So a count will have to happen again before any decisions. On each day of the Assembly, this is point C, quorum must be established prior to decision making by the First Nations in Assembly. So it allows also for a bit of room to let chiefs come into before counting for quorum. That is how the language describes it. Supplemental, microphone 2, please.
Sorry, just real quick. My concern about just when a count is made, what if there's only 10 chiefs in the room at the time, and that would be your quorum for the day, right? And that's just my concern about how I read it. So that is my concern about that whole 51% of registered chiefs who are supposed to be here, or the 10 chiefs who are sitting here when a count is made, right? Because there's an ebb and flow to this room. That's my concern about the process.
So,
thank you.
Perfect. It is noted. Thank you. Mike 2, you arrived first, so I'll go back to Mike 2.
Great, thank you. Chief Tanner Simpson, Alderville First Nation. I would just like to propose a friendly amendment where it says in section B, on each day of the assembly, a quorum will then be maintained so long as the number of chiefs and proxies present on the floor of the assembly room, including those virtually, is equal to at least 51% of that initial count for the day. Now, assuming you have over 200 chiefs in attendance, you could have a majority, but under that 51%. You could be at, say, 50.5%. I would like to say it to be 50% plus one, if that's okay for the mover and the seconder, just to make sure that a majority would rule at a quorum of over 200 chiefs in attendance.
Perfect. So the proposed amendment is in point 1B to replace 51% by 50% plus one. Is that the language okay, Chief?
So that's right.
Perfect. So I would go towards my mover, Chief Sidney Peters, to see if you accept the friendly amendment.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Thank you, Chief Peters. Microphone 1.
Thank you. Chief Calvin Sanderson, Sagastapis and Banner of the Cree Nation, Saskatchewan. I think we had a lengthy discussion on this motion, and I think we're all here to move resolutions because it's going to take a while. And I would suggest maybe on the resolution committee and see how much of them are duplicated so we can maybe omnibus them. So I think we're here to conduct some business, some chief said. So I'll call question and let's get our agenda going. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. So I'm looking towards the floor for a final question. Okay, awesome. I would actually look towards the seconder, I'm sorry, to approve the amendment 2 of replacing 51% by 50% plus one.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Seconder. And if we can have the updated wording be posted on the screen, again, due to technical limitations, only the English version with the amendments will be presented. So technical staff, if you can have that set up, please. I will then go to microphone 2. I heard question was called, but since there's one last speaker, we will go to our last speaker.
Okay, thank you. The question I've got, and it's just around A and the clarification around the count. I would suggest that the count should end once the chair has called the meeting to order on each day. Because the way it reads, there is no defined time for that count. It looks to me like it's wide open all day. So that's just a suggestion because there is no definition of when the count ends.
Do you have a specific amendment that you would like to suggest?
I would recommend that it's once the chair calls the meeting to order. Because you never know if you're running late or if something is going on in the, in the morning. And so once the chair calls the meeting to order, that count should end at that time.
So if I'm looking at point 1A, on each day of the assembly, a count will be conducted if chiefs and proxy representatives present on the floor of the assembly room. You would like to add, including those who are present in the designated virtual assembly room.
Yeah, right at the end, possibly, when, I'll just read it to you here. When the chair calls the meeting to order, right at the end of that paragraph.
So that for the resolutions team would be 1A right at the end. I will wait to see. And may you identify yourself, please, Chief? Sorry. If you can give us your name and your community.
Oh, I'm Brian Asu, proxy for Clawetzi's First Nation.
Thank you, proxy. So the proposed amendment, with the wording that we have from our resolutions here, is in 1A, we add at the end of the thing, virtual assembly room, when the chair calls the meeting to order. So I will look towards my mover to see if you
I'm okay with that amendment.
And if I could look towards our seconder first.
I'm also okay with that amendment.
All right. So we have both mover and seconder approval that we add when the chair calls the meeting to order at the end of point 1A. We had question called. I'll allow one last speaker and then I will close the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Tim Catchaway. I'm the proxy for Chief Harley Chinji of McLeod Lake Indian Band, Treaty Number 8, BC. That last amendment, I have an issue with it. Just when specifically this roll call is to be made, because the meetings that we have in these assemblies, they start 8 a.m. Or sometimes 9 a.m. But at that particular moment in time, not necessarily all of the chiefs and proxies are in the room when that initial, as the amendment that was just approved by the mover and seconder, they're not all in the room when that count would take place. So it would kind of be a false number. I think that some appropriate language for that particular change would be when it's called upon by the chiefs or by a member of the assembly, not necessarily when the chair calls it, but it has to happen every single day. And I think the only time it should be called is when it's actually called by a member of the assembly during that day, not necessarily at the beginning.
Thank you, Proxy Catchaway. I will look towards our mover and seconders. So the language is, instead of when the chair calls the meeting to order, the proposed amendment is when called by a member of the assembly. And I'll wait for our resolutions team to propose that new language. So I'd look towards our mover and seconder. I would need the mover and seconders to speak on the motion, the proposed amendment first, if I can have the mover or seconder. Whether you accept the proposed amendment of replacing with when called by a member of the assembly.
Yeah, I guess this, I mean, this does not need to be complicated. We all are representing our communities, and we're spending a whack of money to be here, to start these meetings, to do business. And as a result, I mean, people should be here. If they're not here, I do know that sometimes, there's emergencies where people are coming and going, but I think that there should be a certain time that everybody knows that you got to be here and show up. We're going to start the meeting at that particular time. And that should be when I think quorum or whatever needs to be taken into consideration. But of course, I think that, when it's called by a member of the assembly, that's fine to call to order, and then we start things. But, whether it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, we need to make that decision, and move it forward. We have people behind the scenes doing lots of agendas, and so everybody across the country know exactly what time it's going to happen, whether it's Eastern, Mountain, whatever it might be, so that everybody knows. If we put a time in on it, I think everybody knows they should be there. But, you know, when called a member of the assembly, you know, when would that be called, I guess? There's no specific time. On all these agendas and stuff that's forwarded out, there's always a time and date. How else are we going to arrive here when it's actually supposed to start? So I think we should stick to the agenda or whatever time it's supposed to start, and then go from there. That's what I would like. That's what I'd like to see. Because again, it doesn't say what time.
So I understand that you are rejecting the amendment.
I am.
Thank
Yes.
you, Chief Peters. So if I could have the Resolutions Committee put the previous amendment that was accepted back on. And seeing as how question was called, we will now move on to a voting period. So I will start by asking if we have any opposition to Draft Resolution 02, clarifying rules and procedures for establishing quorum at AFN assemblies, as amended. Do we have any opposition? Yeah, if they can, when the chair calls the meeting to order. Thank you, Resolutions team. So again, as amended, is there any opposition to Draft Resolution 02, clarifying rules and procedures for establishing quorum at AFN assemblies? Is there anyone who wishes to abstain? Seeing none, Draft Resolution 02, clarifying rules and procedures for establishing quorum at AFN assemblies, as amended, is adopted by consensus. Thank you.
Okay, so we are now at the last charter draft resolution. So we are at draft resolution number 3, DR3 on time. And I am going to deal with it in French. Alors, cela va comme suit. J'aimerais premièrement.
So it goes like this. I would like to ask to the technician to project the draft of charter resolution number 3 on the screen. For the time being, I will give you the title. So the draft resolution 03/2024 in title is Amendment to Charter for the Establishment of an Accessibility and Disability Council as a recognized principal organ under Article 5 of the AFN Charter. This draft resolution, the draft charter resolution number 2 was moved by Chief Byron Louis, Chief
Louis. Oh yes, and sorry, it's not because it's difficult sometimes to see with the lightning, and yeah, so that is why sometimes I need your help. Yep. So thank you, Chief Louis, mover. I'm looking now if we have I think we have a seconder in the room. I saw your hand. So Chief James Hobart, seconder. Thank you very much. Don't go too far. We'll come back to you. But right now we are going to read it. So we're going to read and enter this draft resolution number 3 into the record. And I am going to read it in French, and we are going to read it all together. So a bit of French lesson for some of you maybe. OK, alors, attendu que.
Council. Whereas the Assembly of First Nations has supported First Nation leaders and First Nation persons with disabilities for decades to empower their voices and participation in the drafting of text for the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the Organization of American States Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and the preamble of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, among others. B, the UN Declaration states in Article 21.2, particular attention shall be paid to the rights and special needs of Indigenous elders, women, youth, children, persons with disabilities. C, the preamble of the UNCRPD stresses that persons with disabilities are subject to multiple or aggravated forms of discrimination on the basis of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national, ethnic, indigenous or social origin, property, birth, age, or other status. The CRPD is the only UN human rights instrument with an explicit sustainable development dimension. D, the World Conference on Indigenous Peoples in 2014 called on relevant United Nations entities and bodies to take action to include Indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities in their respective areas of work and to support the creation, strengthening, and capacity development of organizations of Indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities. E, an intergovernmental federal framework established in 1997 entitled In Unison, a Canadian Approach to Disability Issues, demonstrated a commitment to the following vision. Persons with disabilities participate as full citizens in all aspects of Canadian society. The full participation of persons with disabilities requires the commitment of all segments of society. The realization of the vision will allow persons with disabilities to maximize their independence and enhance their well-being through access to required supports and the elimination of barriers that prevent their full participation. F. In the 1980s and 1990s economic recession, funding of First Nations regional disability networks were unfunded, and funding has not since been restored. G, given this void, First Nations disability networks are often replaced with pan-Canadian groups and pan-Indigenous funding models that often lack accountability to First Nations rights holders. This colonial policy and ongoing budgetary constraints continue to disregard the distinct political, health, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions and policies and fundamental human rights of FNPWDs. Moreover, Federal Budget 2024 continues to apply fiscal constraints to the expense of Canada's human rights obligations to FNPWD, and the federal government applauds the Canada Disability Benefits CDB as a budget win-win. In principle, this policy will further impoverish FNPWD and others.
Which can be maybe understood. I'm sorry for that. Thank you all for your comprehension. I was trying to go a bit quicker, but maybe too fast. I'm going to slow down a bit. Sorry, and sorry for translation. I don't want to become your enemy. Okay, I will continue right now. So, le dernier attendu que.
So the last whereas, I, the close relationship between state public budgets and human rights mechanisms has been recognized in international human rights instruments where states' budgets must be adhering to their human rights obligations. And this is fundamental to upholding the rights of FNPWD, among others.
I'm sorry for sign languages as well. Thank you. Alors, nous allons maintenant à la partie de la décision du projet de résolution numéro.
Therefore, be it resolved that the First Nations Assembly 1, in accordance with Article 5.1, Principal Organs, amend the Charter of the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to include an AFN Accessibility and Disability Council under Article 5.1, include its composition under Article 23E, and its role and function under 24E. 2, direct the AFN to advocate for sustained resources to support the establishment of an AFN Accessibility and Disability Council, including sufficient funding. 3, adopt the following description of the AFN Accessibility and Disability Council, including the composition and role and function. The Accessibility and Disability Council, Article 23E, composition. 1. The Accessibility Disability Council shall consist of the lived experience of First Nations persons and knowledge keepers with disabilities and First Nations caregivers and representatives from the First Nations blind and deaf community, among others. The Accessibility and Disability Council shall be inclusive of male, female, and 2S LGBTQIA peoples with lived experience with disability. Each region shall appoint and can remove one member to serve on the council in accordance with the process and procedures governing that region. 2. The chairperson will be selected by the representatives of the Accessibility and Disability Council. Each representative will serve for a term of 3 years and shall be eligible for reappointment. Article 24E, role and function. The role of the Accessibility and Disability Council is to provide assistance, guidance, and support to the National Chief Executive Committee and First Nations in Assembly to support the creation, strengthening, and capacity development of the AFN with respect to FNPWD. 2. The Accessibility Disability Council may discuss any question of any matter within the scope of the present charter or relating to the powers and functions of any organs provided for in the present charter and make recommendations to the Executive Committee, the Confederacy of Nations, the AFN Executive Committee, or to any subsidiary organ on any such question or matter.
So, thank you for your patience. This draft resolution number 3 has been moved, seconded, read, and entered into the record, and I am going to open the floor for debate or discussions on this draft resolution number 3, and I'm going to give or invite the mover to present this draft resolution. Microphone number 2, mover, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Byron Lewis, Chief of the Okanagan Band, and I'd like to briefly talk to this amendment because I think it's so important. When we're talking about accessibility and disabilities, we don't realize how much that actually touches our communities. Presently, about 1992, we're all familiar with CMHC coming out with their housing program, and one of the pushes back then was telling all communities, well, you need to build 2-story homes because, you know, you get more floor space, lower footprint, and our people in our community told them, do not be building those types of houses. We live in these homes from cradle to the grave. And as you come into our community, you can see we lost a battle. There's over 300 homes built today with the cost of putting in infrastructure for accessibilities with ramps, showers, widening doors from 32 to 36-inch doors for handicap. That's about $60,000 per home. And with about 300 homes, that comes out to be about a little over 18 million just for renovations. And when we talked about that, we looked at having a window of 20 years to sort of fits with the demographic. And when you look at that demographic, it's about 7.6 to 7.9% of our population, and we have about 2,300. So when you're talking about that type of disabilities and that we were talking about having about 15 homes a year being prepared for people with disabilities. And of the 26 renovations, over half of those were for disabilities. And if you look at that, most of the people that started in 1982 are now over in that demographic at 65. There isn't a bank in Canada that will give them a loan for $60,000 for those renovations. And when you also look at also at disabilities, and the reason why I bring this up is I'm a father of a daughter. My oldest daughter was born with spina bifida, and she was confined to a wheelchair since birth. And I can tell everyone in this room that there's no one amongst our people that are more disadvantaged than the people with disabilities. And there's, when she was about 7 years old and we're looking for treatment for her ailment, what we were told by, it was FNIB and federal government, or federal representatives that came out from Salmon Arm, came in and sat us down in our house, and they told us the solution for our daughter to get, you know, medical treatment, access to all the benefits everyone takes for granted off reserve. They told us what the solution was, that we're to give our daughter up to care and it should be moved into the neighboring community, and that's where their solution was. It was basically to accommodate them and for their conveniences, and has nothing to do with our disabled people. When you start looking also at disabilities, take for instance, when you look at the percentage of 25% of our population under 14 years of age, think for a moment all the kids in care. Think of all the damages that they have for mental and also, you know, for psychological damages. Look at the people that actually already went through. And when we haven't even talked about diabetes, that's now about 17% of our population. And if you look in our communities, we have about 29% of our population at 2,300 people have diabetes. That's over about well over 600 people. When you start looking at those costs on an average, and this is an average, it is $18,306 per individual for treatment of diabetes. And you think for a moment, even when our single community out of 634 communities, that's roughly about $10 million just for treatment of diabetes. So when we're talking about disabilities, we really need to start moving on that, because we do have an aging population and this is so important. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Miigwech, Chief, for this very important matter. Seconder, microphone number 1.
Azuman Quenched and Squenched, Chief James Hobart of the Spuzzum First Nation in the beautiful British Columbia. Thank you for welcoming us here. So I'll tell you what this is not. This is not a challenge to any legislation. It's not a challenge to the medicine chest. What it is inclusion. It's moving stuff forward for us to, sadly, to catch up to what you've heard already. I don't know if any of you were able to keep up in French, but the UN is already stating that there's not enough representation for the disabled and inaccessible that we have in our nations. And so Byron was really clear in describing what that's about. What I'm here is to tell you that we've seen councils get started for less than this, and this is an important council, I would say, that we're really working with the AFN to consider, and for all the chiefs to vote yes to a council, to a position for those that at one time would have been considered honorable in our nations, those ones that had those gifts. And that's what I want you to understand. That's what we're saying. They need to have that voice that they can't have. Imagine right now, if a person is disabled of some sort, and at 3 years old, they're diagnosed, by the time they're 18, they're still age out. There's no voice for them to say, listen, they're still 3 years old. So we want to make sure that there's a council that helps move these this forward, and we also, so that they can take into consideration our aging demographics and stuff. So that's what I was going to speak on, is just to promote this. I'm on another resolution, but at the same time, this is a huge importance to the charter resolution renewal. So Cookstiamach.
Yep. Miigwech, Chief. Seconder. Microphone number 2, please.
Hugh Breaker, proxy for Chief Ken Watts from Tishat. I support the motion. I just want clarification. Who is going to define what the disability is? When you look at the health authorities, and I'm going to quote, severe substance abuse is classified as a form of substance dependence, which has been recognized as a form of disability. So I want to know, are people suffering from alcohol abuse or drug dependency, are they included within the same committee, or are we here talking about mostly, I don't want to say the usual disabilities, that sounds awful, but what many of us recognize as disabilities with wheelchairs, etc. So I just want that clarification, please.
Miigwech, Chief. Yes, I see that mover is going to microphone number 2 to address this clarification request. So over to microphone number 2. Thank you.
Byron Lewis, Chief of the Okanagan Band. I think when we're looking at, definitions, we should never rely on government to create those definitions. We have to be the ones that define what exactly is a disability, what exactly is a problem with accessibilities, because when we're talking about diabetes or any other of those isms or any of the multi-generation, and if you look at that, there's even studies now that say that trauma is actually multi-generational, and it's passed genetically down to your kids and through that, and it's, I think they call it epidemiology. I think that's what the word is. But anyway, you look at the traumas of our people, and I think we got to really take into consideration. We just can't simply define or create, silo, definitions, because it happens so much in our communities that it could also be health. It could also be mental health. It could it could be all these different, factors that we need to consider. But, to answer Hugh's question, it's got to be us that define what exactly is a disability and what exactly is accessibility. That is for nobody to decide except for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Miigwech, yep, for us to decide. Okay, we're going to go to the last 2 speakers because we have many other draft resolution to hit the floor. So over to microphone number 1, please.
Hawksley Quinney. The RAP program helps people with disabilities. It's been cut down from 120,000 down to 60,000 now, so they combined it. So there's no longer a disability component. So there's less resources available to help address the needs of people with disabilities, particularly with home renovations. There's a lot of diabetics that are amputees. They need ramps, they need door widening, they need their plumbing, they need their shower instead of a bathtub. But also the affordability for housing affects disability. Their shelter allowances under their ODSP is not keeping pace with the cost of rents. So many of them are becoming homeless, struggling to find a place they can afford to live. And so this is just the reality. So I'd like to make sure this committee has the power to look at what's happening with resources that are there to assist with disability, both at CMHC and provincial sources, to make sure that there's adequate funds to address their needs, because right now there isn't. There's also people that cannot afford to go in when they're hospitalized because of their disability. They can't go into assisted living because they can't afford the rent. The shelter allowances are short of the cost of being there, so they don't have a lot of options. And so I think you have to look at the whole affordability. What challenges are people with disabilities facing in terms of affordability? A lot of them don't have big pension funds because they didn't earn a lot of money when they worked. They were low-paying jobs. So that affects the amount they get from Canada Pension. When it's topped up by ODSP, it's still not enough to put a roof over their head. So these are the kinds of issues. I know that we have a member that's at the Port Hope Hospital, can't go into assisted living because they don't have enough income. There's no other options, and that we have a lack of housing in our communities. Some of them can't have dialysis to have medical treatment at home because there's a lack of safe drinking water. Some of them can't have nursing care because of the lack of clean water. So these are the kinds of situations that people that are disabled are faced with. So I'd like to see that the whole resourcing issue looked at and some strong advocacy from the AFN on that. Thank you very much.
Miigwech, Chief. Very important, Miigwech. Last speaker on this draft resolution number 3, microphone number 1.
Vera Mitchell, Chief of Popular River First Nation in Manitoba. I'm from northern Manitoba, and I support this resolution, that creation of a council, but I hope it doesn't get lost in the process of defining what disability is. Because in our communities, we have real situations that our communities face, especially an isolated community. It costs $260 to fly from my community to Winnipeg. No hospital, no road. But I think we lose a lot too because we don't have access to resources and services. Like, for example, our children that age out, that turn 18, you know, if they're disabled, whether it's physically or mentally, if they don't have family to take care of them, then they have nobody, and there's no place to put them. In our community, there's no such thing as independent living for young adults or 24-hour care for some of the adults that are so severely disabled, they have nowhere to go. If you don't have parents or you don't have grandparents to take care of you, where are you supposed to go? I hope those concerns and those points from the grassroots will be addressed in this council. Good.
Chief, I already closed the speakers list. So there were 2 minutes left on the last timer of the last chief. So if you can put back the 2 minutes, and if we have a deal, I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes that was left. But it's an exception because I already closed the speakers list. But just to be kind, I'm going to acknowledge because there were 2 minutes left. So microphone number 2, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Raymond Fletcher din ka daga St. Joseph's Point Buntes and Senior Nation. I support the motion because where I come from, like the previous speaker just mentioned, that we live in a remote area, country. We're all disabled. My community is all disabled. There's no accessibility. The housing, we have poor, very poor housing. We have a housing crisis back home. And that keeps us disabled, right? I just wanted to mention that it's the government that keeps us disabled. And we want proper housing, adequate housing for everybody, all nations in the country. Thank you so much.
Miigwech Chief. So this ends our discussion period. I'm going to put the matter to a vote and call the question. First, is there any opposition to this draft resolution number 3? Any opposition in the room? I don't see any opposition, so no opposition. Any abstention in the room? Just to make sure, if you want your abstention to be noted. No abstention. So on that, I now declare that draft resolution number 3 has passed by consensus. So congratulations to you all. Very important matter. Congratulations. Yeah. Another consensus. So on that finishes the part related to draft resolution related to charter, and we will now proceed to the next draft resolution number. Oh, I'm gonna let my colleague announce it. So later, thank you.
Now that we're warmed up, we're going to be moving on to draft resolution, or emergency resolution, I am sorry, ER01. So this one was handed out to you after lunch. You should have a copy, and it should also be put on screens. Thank you, technical staff. I will be looking for ER01, titled Response to Report on Preliminary Audit of AFN Finances. Was moved by Chief Dylan Whiteduck. Is Chief Dylan Whiteduck here? I see you standing. and seconded by Chief Jenny Brake. Is Jenny Brake close? I see you standing too. In order to save on time, we will be just going directly to the therefore be it resolved. You have the whereas in your packages. So, for the record, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, agree that a forensic audit of the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, National Indian Brotherhood, is not warranted and should not be undertaken. 2, direct the AFN to update all of its policies to ensure that they comply with the Canada Labour Code. 3, direct the AFN to update all of its policies to ensure that there are clear processes for contract procedures, including enforcement and disciplinary measures of AFN employees for non-compliance. 4, direct the AFN to provide formal training for the CEO, in parentheses, including interim acting CEOs, and senior staff, including the National Chief Office staff, on the prevailing AFN financial policy with a specific focus on procedures for AFN contract approvals and processing. Such training shall be mandatory on an annual basis. Failure to participate in complete training shall be cause for disciplinary action that may include termination. And therefore be resolved number 5, direct the AFN to impose strict compliance and enforcement policies on the use of credit cards issued by the AFN. Failure to submit receipts on a monthly basis will result in the cancellation of the AFN credit card, and this shall be strictly enforced by the CEO, in parentheses, or interim acting CEO, with no exceptions. So I will look towards our mover, Chief Dylan White Duck, if you want to come to microphone number 2.
Chief White Duck, Kitigan ZB Anishinaabe. The resolution is pretty straightforward. The Resolutions Committee, I just want to let you know that I joined the Resolutions Committee to help the AFN. Obviously, there was a seat vacant. I took the opportunity to learn more about the AFN and see how the charter process goes. And through that process, there was a lot of things that were happening. And one of the recommendations from that original resolution that was voted on in Vancouver in 2021 was that it went to the Charter Renewal Committee. So once it went down to the Charter Renewal Committee, we've seen a little bit of turnover. And that's when we started to see new faces on the Charter Renewal Committee and new people joining it. There was a lot of good people. They all moved on. But essentially, there was a lot of discrepancy in terms of legal. We couldn't go back, the Charter Renewal couldn't go back more than, I believe, 7 years. There was some legal context of 10 years versus 7 years. And at the end of the day, when the Charter Renewal Committee was mandated to get a quote, BDO couldn't actually provide a quote to conduct a forensic audit. Their mandate to conduct the audit was to do a forensic audit for 10 years was, they had to look at all the records and everything for the last 7 years. And their opinion after reviewing the 7 years of the audits from the AFN was that there was some clerical errors, there was some stuff that happened, but it was very minuscule in terms of not providing receipts and some off contracts in terms of the regional chiefs making the final decision at times. So essentially, we were kind of one-legged at one point, but we gathered ourselves. We had always quorum. We always maintained that as the Charter Renewal Committee. And at this time, BDO did an audit for an analysis audit of the situation for the AFN. And that's when it began to see that they concluded that there was no finance to conduct a 10-year forensic audit because there was no statutes of the 7 years that they conducted of their review. So essentially, it is to pass the buck over from the Charter Renewal Committee and get the ball out of our court back to the regional chiefs and the assembly here for the chiefs to make a decision on to whether you choose to continue with that resolution or to cancel all this stuff that we all been through the last several years. So it's time for us to kind of close this chapter on this process of a forensic audit and move forward and work all together and come together as chiefs across the country and work together as First Nations. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you, mover Chief Dylan White Duck. I will now move along to our seconder, Chief Brake.
Hello? Thank you. I just want to add that the BDO report does advise us to move on with the recommendations, and any organization throughout its time is going to come along circumstances that will provide change to any kind of financial policies, and we're no different. So I think that the the recommendations made by BDO will save us a lot of time and money and allow us to go forward in a good way.
Thank you, Chief Brake. So we will now be going to our discussion period, if those want to address the things to come to the mic. And I will start with microphone number 1.
Good afternoon, Chief Wilfred King, Kiasawagi and Anishinaabe, Gulbay First Nation. I fully support the resolution. I think there's a typo. It's a friendly amendment on paragraph C. It talks about the audits approved at the July 2024 Annual General Assembly in Halifax. I think that should be 2023 on that. Also, I know there's a reference to the BDO report that was contained in our packages, and that was deemed to be private and confidential. And again, I don't know if we should be discussing that or the contents of that unless we go in camera. I'll leave it to your discretion, Mr. Chair. But I fully support the resolution because I think it's made it very clear that the what's been investigated, there was no findings to conduct a forensic audit. And for the record, I was one of the chiefs that was accused of impropriety by the former national chief, and I do have an apology letter from her. I'd like to read it aloud, considering I have 3 minutes left. It says here, to whom it may concern, I wish to apologize to Chief Wilfred King of Kiasawagi and Anishinaabe Gulbay First Nation for a statement I made in my July 1st, 2022 email to the chiefs of the First Nations in Assembly of the Assembly of First Nations for any offense he took to the contents of the email. I wish to further apologize for statements I made to the media, chiefs in Assembly, and on my social media, which further exacerbated the July 1st statement. While it is not my intention to make insinuations about his good character, I regret my choice of words. I understand why he feels attacked by me. I apologize unreservedly to Chief King for the hurt my comments may have caused him and his reputation. I am hopeful that we will restore peace and harmony to our relationship moving forward. Sincerely, Roseanne Archibald. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief King. So we had a proposed amendment in the whereas C to correct the date of July 2024 for July 2023. I will look towards our mover, Chief White Duck. Chief White Duck, proposed amendment to correct a typo in whereas C that says July 2024 Annual General Assembly to correct it for July 2023.
So we're just changing the dates and putting it, yeah, that's fine.
Correcting a typo. Looking towards our seconder. Thank you. Microphone 2, please.
Chief Kelsey Jack from Cold Lake First Nation. I just have a question. Who approves the audit? I thought the chiefs approved the audit. That's just my comment.
Thank you, Chief Jacko. I will go back to microphone number 2.
Thank you. Leah George Wilson, proxy for Fort Nelson, Chief Charlene Gale. Just a question. Wondering when the chiefs would know when the updates are made to the policies and procedures. I don't know that it needs to be in the resolution, but we'd like to know when it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Proxy Wilson.
I think microphone 1 can answer those questions.
I've been advised that maybe microphone 1 would have answers to that. Microphone 1?
No, Chief Wilfred King, Gulbay First Nation. That was a question I asked this morning because I think the resolution talks about the chiefs approving the audits, and for years, it's my recollection that the chiefs did approve the audits after it was presented to the chiefs in Assembly. And whether or not it's in the rules of procedure or not, or whether or not it's in our policies, if it's a convention, it becomes the law of the organization. So I asked that question this morning. I don't think I got a satisfactory answer. And I'm just concerned that, that we didn't follow that same process we've been following for years. So I'm not sure if that answers the question of the previous speaker. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief King. I would look towards then our mover, if there was answers or... So we will go to microphone 1.
Ani, Chief Laurie Carr, Hiawatha First Nation. I just wanted to ask for a friendly amendment and ask that we perhaps add a number 6 that says up to 1 year to complete numbers 2 through 5, just so that we have timelines for getting the work done. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Laurie. So we have an amendment that is proposed to add a point 6 that says the AFN would have up to 1 year to complete points 2 to 5. Is the wording correct, Chief Laurie? So if I'll look towards our resolutions committee, if they can have that put up in the therefore be it resolved, so that we may have it on screen as we discuss, and have our technicians scroll down, please. So the proposed amendment is to add a therefore be it resolved 6, that the AFN would have up to 1 year to complete, therefore be it resolves 2 to 5. I would look towards our mover. I'll give you a moment. Okay. Microphone 2.
I spoke to my colleague, and we're going to have to disagree with that amendment. The reason being, they should have been always followed from the very beginning and the outset. If all these policies and all these things and all the stuff that the AFN should have been doing, we wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place. So they should be following it from day one. Once this resolution is passed here today, just follow the policies. Let's get everything in order at the AFN. There's no time, they don't have a year to get it done. Start today once this resolution is voted on and passed. Miigwech.
I agree with my colleague. I think it should be implemented immediately.
So the proposed amendment for the addition of a 6 has been rejected. I would go back to microphone number 1.
Then I would like to ask whether, if you don't agree with the years, that I would like to see a timeline. I would like to see something comes out that this work has been done and we're not sitting here. This has been carrying on a long time now. I'd like to see something that says this work is going to be done or when it's done.
Seeing as how the motion or the proposed amendment was rejected, we will have to leave it at that. I will look towards our microphones for final comments before we go to a vote. Seeing none, we will now proceed to the voting process, and I will ask if there is any objections to draft resolution or emergency resolution number 1, response to report on preliminary audit of AFN finances. Is there any opposition? The voting period's begun at Chief King.
Hello, Chief King, Kiaslagi, Shnebek, Gully First Nations. There's no opposition to it, just a point of order. The question wasn't called. I think we have to get our rules of order in place here, folks. You know, question should be called before you go to a vote. I'm calling question.
Thank you, Chief King. So looking towards the Assembly, are there any opposition to emergency resolution 1, response to report on preliminary audit of AFN finances? Seeing none, is there any abstentions to emergency resolution number 1, response to report on preliminary audit of AFN finances? Seeing none. Emergency resolution number 1, response to report on preliminary audit of AFN finances is accepted. I will now move it on to my colleague Véronique.
Just quickly, in between two resolutions, draft resolutions, I wanted to say that I received some information about the event tonight. So at 5 p.m., the participants can leave Montreal to go to Ganawagi. It's about a 30 minutes drive from here, maybe a bit less. At 6 p.m. Is the arrival at the Golden Age Club, and there's the meal until 7:30. There's a welcoming word to the territory, and then there's a meet and greet with networking, and at 8 p.m. there's a lacrosse game. So if you don't want to miss that, you can go to Ganawagi right after the assembly. And as we don't want to keep all the information for the end, I will also remind you that tomorrow morning there is the pipe ceremony again with Cheyenne Kitchakik at 7 a.m. and the Circle of Trade starts at 9 as well. So that's a little housekeeping for tonight and tomorrow morning. And now we can pass on to the next resolution. Thank you.
Véronique. Merci, Véronique.
Thank you, Véronique.
Chiefs and proxies, or as the rules of procedures now refer you to chiefs and proxy representatives. So I'm inviting you for your attention for the next draft resolution number 5, and I'm going to ask if we can put it up on the screen. And I wanted to read it in French, but be aware it's only the therefore be it resolved section that will be read, since it's not a charter draft resolution. Okay, on that. Le titre du projet de résolution numéro 5.
So the title of this resolution number 4 is entitled Financial Security for AFN Regional Offices. This was proposed by Nashariani, Eric Morris.
Are you present in the room? You are the mover. Microphone number 1.
Proxy for Eric Morris, Alex Oakley, designated counsel.
Can you please repeat once again, sorry, your name, full name?
Alex Oakley, proxy for Eric Morris.
Miigwech, Chief. Proxy. Okay, the mover, the seconder now, Amanda Alias, Chief. Yes, Chief is at the microphone number 1. Usual, please stay nearby. Nous allons maintenant.
And now we will read the draft resolution number 5, and I will go directly to the decision for the resolution, and it begins as follows. Therefore, be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly direct the Assembly of First Nations, Secretariat, the National Chief, and Executive Committee to work together to establish a core funding formula to identify a regional base amount for the AFN regional offices. 2, direct the AFN and the National Chief to advocate to Canada for long-term sustainable financial resources to support the core operations of AFN regional offices for the year 2025 and 2026 and beyond. 3, direct the AFN and the National Chief to develop and commence a lobbying strategy to secure federal funding that will respond to the annual funding needs of the AFN regional offices. And last, number 4, direct the AFN to provide a report back to the First Nations in Assembly in December 2024. So this draft resolution number 5 entitled financial security for AFN regional offices has been read and reread, and now I invite discussion, and I'll invite the proposer, Sila, if there are any comments or if they wish to speak to the Assembly. You have 4 minutes, so...
Mover, would you like to address the Assembly? You have up to 4 minutes. Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you. I won't take 4 minutes. I just have a couple speaking notes here. The financial security is important. The AFN Charter is clear on national office, corresponding secretariat, and serves the interest of AFN members, which is all of us. The AFN executive, recognized as a principal body with the AFN Charter, provides leadership to the national organization secretariat, informed by the historical, cultural, and political perspectives of the Yukon regions, as brought forward by the respective regional chiefs. As the First Nations in Assembly, to continue to address the complex issues and priorities of the membership, these matters are also need the attention of AFN EC. More so what I'm getting at is that we expect more out of our AFN regional chiefs with less funding. So as a leader, I mean, I'm always expected to do more with less funding, and then I in turn pass that off onto the AFN, expect more with less funding for them to operate with. So I yield the rest of my time to Amanda.
Chief Amanda Lease to Quechan Council. In more recent years, we have seen the national organization and secretariat grow and their financial resources increase. Noting that the AFN budget for 2024-25 fiscal year has been identified as $75.6 million, with only 1.5 expected to be distributed to the regions, which equates to 150,000, whereas the national office core funding is set at 6.5 million. Correspondingly, we have minimal resources dedicated to support the regional chiefs and the regional offices to support the necessary work to advance the interest and priorities of First Nations rights holders within their respective regions. Similarly, the national chief receives the security of financial resources for its office. We seek the support of First Nations in Assembly to make the financial security of the regional chiefs and their respective regions a priority as well. Shonithan, thank you.
Miigwech, Chief. Microphone number 2, please.
Chief Kelsey Jocko, Cold Lake First Nation. I suggest making a point 4 to point 5 and inserting a new point for point 4, which reads, directed the AFN and the National Chief to identify alternative funding mechanisms to ensure member nations without a regional office or representative are able to participate in the co-development of policies and procedures, regardless of the presence of a formalized AFN office in that region. Masi.
Miigwech, Chief. Okay, so there's a member of the resolution committee team that is making sure that we got the correct language for the proposed amendment, and we will put it up on the screen right after it is discussed with the chief. Okay, so we got okay, you all see it now, so we will read it together. So it is proposed to add a new, therefore be it resolved, number 4, direct the AFN and National Chief to identify alternative funding mechanisms to ensure member nations without a regional office or representative are able to participate in the co-development of policies and procedures regardless of the presence of a formalized AFN office in that region. Chief, at microphone number 2, can you please confirm this language reflects what you just proposed?
Zoo, good.
Miigwech, Chief. I am now looking at the mover and the seconder. I want to make sure that the mover and the seconder do agree to that proposed amendment, and I see thumbs up. That means that they are in favor of this proposed amendment. Microphone number 1.
Yes, we agree.
Great. Miigwech for that. So, draft resolution number 5 has been amended. Any other chiefs proxies that wish to speak to that matter before we put that matter to a vote? I see no one at the microphone, so we are ready to call the question. And on that, I'm going to check. I'm going to ask, if there's any opposition in the room for draft resolution number 5, entitled Financial Security for AFN Regional Offices. I see one opposition in the room. I'm going to ask my colleague. Oh, hands there. So I see 2 oppositions at my left. So total of 3 oppositions. If there are new oppositions, just raise your red lanyard so I can see it. And I don't see any other opposition. So 3 oppositions. Any abstention in the room? Any abstentions in the room? I don't see any abstention. So I now declare that draft resolution number 5, entitled Financial Security for AFN Regional Offices as amended, is carried by majority. Congratulations. So on that, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague Cedric.
It is now time for draft resolution 06, support for increased attendance of members at AFN assemblies. We have as a mover Chief Sean Smith from Kwanlin Dun First Nation. Do we have Chief Sean Smith with us? Microphone 1, please.
Linda Moan, proxy for Chief Sean Smith.
Thank you. Proxy Moan, and you are moving the resolution? Thank you. And we have as seconder proxy Alex Oakley, who is just here with us from Teslin Tlingit Council. I see that our resolutions committee is updating the form. Thank you very much. We will read that therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, support the spirit and intent of this resolution and recognize that the recommendations may require charter amendments. And therefore be it resolved 2, directs the Chiefs Committee on Charter Renewal to examine and provide recommendations at the December 2024 Special Chiefs Assembly to the First Nations in Assembly, specifically addressing A, technical requirements and a cost-benefit analysis to change the AFN Summer Assembly to become an AFN Spring Assembly to support First Nations leaderships to attend to local matters during summer period. B, cost considerations for members to attend assemblies in person in election years when the First Nations in Assembly are electing their national chief, and C, any other considerations that the First Nations in Assembly may need to consider when making a decision to realize the objectives of this resolution. I will move to Proxy Linda Moan for your opening comments.
Thank you, Chair. As we are aware, the AFN represents 600 First Nations across Canada. However, we have noticed a decline due to the COVID pandemic, which we are starting to see the numbers go back and being increased. There are other contributing factors to why members are either able to unattend or required to stay home in their communities, linked to devastating impacts of climate change. Back home in the Yukon, there are currently 70+ active fires, And in previous years, we have seen devastating impacts of flooding and forest fires in BC and across Turtle Island. These natural disasters continue to happen during the summer periods and require leadership to stay at their home communities to insist maintaining stability. It is foreseeable that these disasters will continue to be a part of the natural cycles our communities have to navigate and manage. Historically, the AFN holds the assembly in summer months. This year, the Yukon has 3 out of the 14 First Nations represented because our leadership is at home tending to these forest fires and tremendous loss due to the opioid crisis. The Yukon leadership sees value in participating in these assemblies. While attending these meetings conflict with community priorities, the community priorities will prevail. As the resolution sets out, we are seeking the AFN to support looking at scheduling a spring assembly to replace the summer assembly to alleviate the pressures leadership faces and encourage increased participation. Representation matters. The resolution also speaks to increasing participation in the assemblies by making attendance more cost-effective. It is more expensive during the summer months for hotels and travel. Increased participation is important to build First Nation awareness of decisions that are being made on behalf of the right holders and to increase public confidence in the organization. Travel to attend these assemblies add an additional 2 travel days for us living in the north. It is also very time-consuming. We seek the First Nation and Assembly to support the National Office to reevaluate the registration costs and seek additional federal resources to decrease direct costs to the First Nations. An alternative and option that presents the greatest potential is to have Assembly as a hybrid, with the exception of the Assembly to elect and select the National Chief. These assemblies are necessary to be in person to allow meaningful engagement with the candidates and votes. As well, holding a virtual assembly has been tried and tested. We appreciate that there is a cost to provide hybrid assemblies. However, we maintain the view that the cost of accommodating the AFN membership, who are the right holders to the matters to this national organization advances, should take the precedence, and that the Secretariat be directed to incorporate necessary measures and seek the necessary resources or adjust the organization budget to meet the needs of the AFN membership. Ganeshish, thank you.
Thank you, Proxy. I'll now look towards our seconder proxy, Alex Oakley, if you have any comments you would like to share.
No, I got none. Just one. With COVID and the hybrid option, I really didn't see an increase in our own participation, so it's something we all have to consider. I mean, it does, if you think of the financial means that some people have traveling from northern communities, it is very costly for them, and it's more cheaper for them to participate virtually, so thanks.
Thank you, Proxy Oakley. So I'll now open it up to the floor for discussion. If there's any chiefs that have comments, we have microphone number 2, Chief White Duck.
Just a friendly amendment, if you please. I don't think we should put in this type of decision on the Chiefs Charter Renewal Committee. It should be a decision made by perhaps the regional chiefs or all the chiefs in assembly. Putting this burden on the regional, the charter renewal, it's very cumbersome. I'll let you know that. I've been on this for about 5 months now, I believe, and there's other priorities that we have to focus on sometimes when we meet about once a month, or twice a month. But I think the wording has to be changed where it's not put on us, the onus to make that decision. It's just too much for us to decide if we're going to have it in the spring or in the summer. Just something that I want to just comment to, or just make a friendly amendment if we could make someone else perhaps make that big decision on behalf of the entire assembly. And I want to let you also know that cities do bid on where they have these big assemblies, and I believe that I asked that question too because we were trying to look at that, and it's always mandated in the charter that's in the summer. So these cities, they bid on these locations to have us come to these cities, and it's always been planned out for the next 3 years. So it'd have to be a big amendment and big process of change to get that all overturned and stuff. So I just want to make that comment, but also making a friendly amendment to perhaps making somebody else make that big decision for the dates. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief White Duck. So there's a start to a proposed amendment. If you can stay close, Dylan, because I would ask, who do you think we should amend it to? What language do you propose? And maybe then I'd look towards our mover and seconder to see if you have comments. If we can have microphone number 2, please.
I would support the AFN executive make that decision. Work with your regional chiefs and get them to lobby on your behalf if it's a spring or a summer. But honestly, it should be the regional chiefs that step up to make that decision and get the support from their chiefs.
Thank you, Chief White Duck. So the proposed amendment would be, and therefore be it resolved to direct the AFN executive to examine and provide recommendations at the December 2024 Special Chiefs Assembly to the First Nations and Assembly, specifically addressing point A, B, and C. So I would look towards our mover first and our seconder after. To either
We agree.
Okay. Proxy clear too. Thank you. So the amendment is accepted. We have the language on our English version here. So thank you. Microphone number 1, Chief King.
Good afternoon, Chief Wilfred King, Kiaslog, Schnebek, Gulbay First Nation. I just want the mover and the seconder to consider that there are a lot of communities in Northern Ontario that are impacted by spring breakup. Some have winter roads that are melting. Planes cannot fly out of those communities at times. I think from our perspective, again, I'm not speaking for a remote northern communities, but I'm a semi-remote community. The best time for my community is during the summer. So if there is going to be a change, I think they have to look at those communities that might be greatly impacted by attending because of spring thaw. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief King. Looking towards the microphones to see if there's any more discussion to be had. I see some representatives getting up. Final call for comments. Microphone 1, please.
Chief Amanda Lease to Onquitchun Council, Whitehorse, Yukon. I'm wondering, maybe it's a little too wordy and it's asking too much for one resolution. So just a friendly amendment. Can we take out A? And again, we can have AFN executive discuss the timing of it, but we're really looking for the hybrid option as well. So if the mover and seconder are okay with that. Thanks. So
the proposed amendment by Chief Lease is to strike out 2A, that says technical requirements and a cost-benefit analysis to change this AFN Summer Assembly to become an AFN Spring Assembly to support First Nations leadership to attend to local matters during the summer period, to strike out the entire part, 2A. I look towards our mover and seconder.
I agree.
Seconder?
I agree too.
Thank you. So the amendment is approved. One final look around. Any other comments, questions? If not, or we have microphone number 2.
Lease Band, Chief Quarterband. If there's an amendment and it's going to be virtual, the information should be made so that way there's a time difference as well too, because when there's meetings happening back east here and they're sent to us in BC, they're always given the Eastern time. They should include both times because it confuses participants when they want to enter into a meeting. Just saying.
Thank you, Chief Siren. Looking towards the microphones. We will then proceed to the vote. So I will ask if there's any opposition to draft resolution 6, support for increased attendance of members at AFN assemblies. We have a point of order being raised. If we can have microphone 1, please.
Proxy for Chief Chinji. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be in conflict with the resolution that just passed a couple of minutes ago. I believe it's resolution number 1, which already states that the AFN National Chief election is going to be held both in person and virtually. Am I wrong?
So the new, therefore be resolved, support the spirit and intent of this resolution and recognize that the recommendations may require charter amendments. And 2, direct the AFN executive to examine and provide recommendations at the December 2024 Special Chiefs Assembly.
So it would be B, that would be in conflict with a resolution that just was accepted by the Chiefs and Assembly.
Perfect. So point of order taken. I will speak with my resolutions committee and my co-chairs and we'll get back to it. Thank you for your patience. So the point of order that was being raised saying that there's a contradiction, what we're looking at is examining and providing recommendations. And we look at point B, it's cost considerations for members to attend assemblies in person. It's not obliging people to attend in person. So that's why the language is specifically written this way. And then the recommendations could be any of the above. Microphone 1, please.
Your analysis then is that they're not in conflict?
Exactly, because this one is just to look to examine and provide recommendations. It is not an enforcement or, what's the word we used? It's not a requirement, yeah.
It's not a requirement to attend in person?
Not according to this language, because it's to look at examining and providing recommendations on the topic of cost considerations for members who attend assemblies in person in election years.
Okay, so if I can propose a friendly amendment, it would be to strike B from this particular resolution. So that's up to the mover and seconder, right?
Yep. Thank you. So we dealt with the point of order. However, the amendment, we had already gone into the voting period, so we cannot amend further. So we will continue on with the vote. We had asked for any opposition. We will now ask if anyone abstains. Seeing none. Draft Resolution 6, support for increased attendance of members at AFN assemblies, is accepted as amended by consensus.
I need to amend. Merci, Cédric. And congratulations.
Thank you, Cedric.
Okay, here we are on this first day of this 3-day AGA, 45th AFN AGA, last draft resolution for the day. So you did a lot of great work. Some more decision, another last decision on that, on the draft resolution. So I will now invite you to, for your attention on draft resolution, on revised draft resolution number 37. I've been told, and we can all see that this draft resolution has been revised. So I've been told that small or minor changes were included. We will read them all the changes in the whereas section. We'll look at them together, and we will read the full therefore be it resolved sections together. But before doing that, title of the draft resolution number 37, support for the Assembly of First Nations 2S LGBTQIA+ Council, mandate and funding. So a support draft resolution. This draft resolution number 37 is moved by Chief Adam Polchis. Chief Polchis is at the microphone number 1.
Hello, everyone. Love the energy, love the energy. So great to gather with you. Chief Alan Polchis, St. Mary's First Nation in beautiful Wolastoq territory in New Brunswick. I'm here to move this amendment. And of course, I was, oh, sorry.
Oh, it's so sad I need to interrupt you because you also have a lot of good energy, but we are at the, just to make sure that we have the mover and the seconder in the room. So on that, I'm going to now check. So thank you, Chief. And now this draft resolution number 37 has been seconded by Chief Shelley Sabatis.
Yes. Chief Shelley Sabatis, Director First Nation, and second the motion, please.
Great. Thank you very much for this, Chiefs. And on that, we will now go to the whereas section because there are some revised whereas, and we will read only the revised ones together. So we'll go to H. Thank you, Encore. H, the 2S LGBTQIA+ Council's strategic plan includes I'm sorry, I have the energy, but my eyes are not looking at the same thing as I'm. So thank you for your patience. Going back to H. The 2S LGBTQIA+ Council continues to strengthen relationships with organizations like the Two Spirits in Motion Society, previously the Two Spirits in Motion Foundation, to continue to provide support to 2S LGBTQIA+ persons. In 2018, First Nations in Assembly passed a Assembly of First Nations Resolution 45/2018, Two Spirits in Motion Foundation, to support the development and funding of the 2SIMS. We will now go to the therefore be it resolved section, and we will read them all together, but as you can see, the fifth one is in red, so it has been, it is a change, so it has been added since it has been put in the package published on the AFN website. So it goes like this. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, reaffirm that Two-Spirit and gender diverse peoples are a traditional part of First Nations and carry unique responsibilities vital to the collective well-being of First Nation societies. 2, support the AFN 2S LGBTQIA+ Council in rejecting government policies that directly impact the safety and well-being of Two-Spirit and gender diverse First Nations people, especially those policies that negatively impact First Nations youth. 3, direct the 2S direct the 2S LGBTQIA+ Council to report back to the First Nations in Assembly on an annual basis on progress on the strategic plan. 4, Direct the AFN to seek out appropriate funding and resources for the AFN to LGBTQIA+ Council to ensure the implementation of their strategic plan and mandate. 5. Reaffirm AFN Resolution 45/2018, Two Spirits in Motion Foundation, to continue to support sufficient, predictable, and sustainable funding to 2S+ initiatives, including 2SIMS. Last one, number 6. Call on Canada to continue to advance and fully implement Action Plan Measure 11 and support the implementation of the federal 2S LGBTQI+ Action Plan 2022. So this revised draft resolution number 37, entitled Support for the AFN 2S LGBTQIA+ Council, Mandate and Funding, has been moved, seconded, read, and entered into the record. And on that, I'm going to open now the discussion period, and I'm going to invite the mover to introduce this draft resolution number 37. Mover at Chief Polchis at microphone number 1, please.
Well, Ewan, for that, and I just want to again thank the Assembly, because it wasn't until 2018 when I made the first motion as being voted in as a two-spirited chief in New Brunswick. And I wanted to be the voice for all of our two-spirited people, but be the voice for all the spirit of our generation, of our children that are yet to come to this Assembly today. I noticed the National Chief had brought her children. I brought my son that I adopted and taken it out of the system. And it's important that we continue to do that work. But to this particular resolution, it's funding. Because of the work that we are doing, the committee behind me, the folks on justice, on women, and the two-spirited folks. So we bring this motion forward, and we ask for the support on this. Will Ewan.
Will Ewan. Thank you, Chief. Would the seconder like to speak to that matter as well? Microphone number 1.
He said it perfectly. Chief Allen just said it perfectly. I don't think there's anything else I need to say, but we all, I don't know all of us, but most of us have people in our family who are two-spirited, and they've had a very difficult time. So it's time to change that. It's time to support all these individuals, and we have to move forward, and we just have to find a way to live peacefully, be safe in our communities, and that's what it's all about, right?
Great. Yep. Miigwech, well done. Okay, so I think we're ready to put that matter to a vote. So we will now vote on the revised draft resolution number 37. Sorry. And I have a cat in the throat. Okay, so first, any opposition to this draft resolution, revised draft resolution number 37? Any opposition in the room? No opposition. Any abstention in the room? I now no abstention. So on that, I now declare this revised draft resolution number 37, entitled Support for the AFN 2S LGBTQIA+ Council, Mandate and Funding, is adopted by consensus. So congratulations. Thank you very much. Yep. So on that, I am going to turn the floor over to Cedric. Even though there's nice pictures taken, we are going to continue the work. We finished the draft resolution for this first day, but we have some other important matters to discuss, and on that I'm going to turn the floor over to Cedric. Thank you very much.
So congratulations to all movers, seconders, and chiefs in assembly for their work today. We talk about reaching consensus, and that was a beautiful example of it, of getting work done, so thank you for that. I will switch to French because there is a French phone that has been lost. Donc, s'il y a quelqu'un qui ont perdu leur téléphone,
If somebody lost, it's a French phone actually. If you lost your phone, the said phone will be available right here. So, French-speaking chief, if you need it, it is at the distribution.
I just want to take the time to remind you guys that we do have a host community reception in Ganawage at the Golden Age Club. We're looking to confirm departure time, if I can look at our staff. We will have shuttles leaving from this area here, le Palais des Congrès, and we're looking to confirm final details with that. I'll move on to our next point in the agenda as we are waiting on that. So, chiefs and proxies, the next component of our discussion is on long-term reform of the First Nations Child and Family Services Program. Due to settlement privilege and confidentiality, this part of the meeting must be conducted in camera between chiefs and proxies. The parties have not concluded a final settlement agreement yet. However, the AFN would like to provide a confidential and high-level briefing to the chiefs on the suite of reforms that are being proposed. So, we are asking that only those possessing red lanyards to stay in the room. In order to ensure a quick transition, we would ask that anyone except chiefs and proxies would exit the venue through our doors. AFN staff will be coming around to verify your lanyards, so please have them close by for all chiefs and proxies.